Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, Periscope. How are you today? I am going to turn this around. Hello, hello. How are you today? How are you? It is me, Tanika G. I am your Real Talk Minister, and I'm also a licensed psychotherapist. Thank you so much for joining me on today. How are you? I pray all is going well. It is me. I am Tanika G, your Real Talk Minister, and I'm also a licensed psychotherapist. And I am coming to you today. I want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. I also want to say welcome to all of my replay viewers. So glad that you could be joining me on today as well. And I want to say to you all, I thank you in advance for the heart love, and even for my replay viewers. You know, as you're watching this and as you're listening to this, you have the perfect opportunity to tap, tap, tap on that screen and show some heart love. We are going to be today talking about something very specific in relationship, okay? And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking to you today. Hold on for 1 second. I don't know what is going on with my screen. There we go. Talking about relationship real talk. And for those of you who have never been on my scope before, this is your first time joining. As I'm a minister, I'm also a licensed psychotherapist. I have a private practice, and I work with individuals and couples who are dealing with infidelity within their marriage or their relationship. I also work with couples who are dealing with the stronghold of sexual addiction. And on my scopes, what we do is we talk about these real life relevant topics within relationship. The purpose for doing this is because, you know, infidelity or addiction of any kind, especially sexual addiction, it is it's an addiction that really thrives in secrecy. Thank you so much for the heart love. I so appreciate it. It is it's something that people deal with, and it thrives on secrecy. It thrives on keeping people isolated. And if you're the partner or the husband or the wife that is dealing with that stronghold, for the spouses that have to deal with this as well, it isolates them. Oftentimes, yes, monogamy is natural and it is absolutely feasible. And I've had monogamous relationships, so I absolutely know that it is possible and it is feasible. In my scopes, what we do is we talk about relevant things such as that. The other reason why I do this is because as a minister, you know, within the church, it's not a topic that we absolutely talk about. Now, we'll talk about the sin, and we'll talk about, you know, how you need to stop this, and how you need to pray. But it takes more than just prayer. It takes more than just prayer. It takes having open, honest dialogue, being able to talk, feeling as though you're in a place of safety where if this is a stronghold that you are dealing with, you are able to come and you are able to be in a safe place, a safe community with others. Pardon me. And you can talk about it, and we can give you not only strategies such as, you know, prayer, but we can give you real life applicable strategies that you have to walk out with God's help. I'm telling you right now, it's not a stronghold. That's something that we can address. I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to address it on this scope because that's not my topic for today. But if you go ahead and hit that the paraman at the bottom and follow me, I can guarantee you we will get to it. Okay, but we're not going to deal with that on today. What I do want to talk about, though, it is in this relationship real talk, is how denial does not work when we're in a relationship, whether it's a marriage or it's a dating relationship. To deny any kind of challenge in your relationship. And I'm not going to limit it to just infidelity. I'm going to say, you know, if there are other behaviors that are going on, like mistrust for other reasons, or, you know, if there's issues such as we're not communicating the way that I would like to, or the way that we need to, whatever the challenge is in your relationship, denying it is not going to make it go away. Saying, you know what, time will fix it, and I'm just going to pray about it, and I'm just going to leave it all in God's hands. That's great that you pray about it. And that's great that you rely on God to help you with it, but relying on God alone is not going to help. Why do I say that? Because you're required to do some things. After you get done praying about it, God will give you instruction on what you need to do. He's not going to come down and the instructions that he's given you, he's not going to do those things for you. That which he tells you or that which he requires you to do, he's going to look for you to do those things. Now, denial takes on many forms. One way that we can deny things, or the one way that we can walk in denial, is recognizing that it's there but trying to excuse it away. That can look like this. Oh, well, he or she, that's them. They always do that. Girl, I don't pay that any mind. Man, that's just her. And all the while, whatever it is that we are attempting to excuse away, it's causing us emotions. It might be hurting us. It might be causing disappointment. It might be breeding mistrust in the relationship, but yet we're busy trying to excuse it away. That is a form of denial, and it doesn't work. When we engage in that type of behavior, what happens is we begin building a resentment for not only the behavior, but for the person that we're in relationship with. And then that manifests itself in many ways. This is why denial does not work. Making excuses for it does not work. Another way that we operate, or a person can operate in denial, is by, it'll get better. It'll get better. It'll get better. He or she won't do this always. Once they really recognize what it does to me and how it makes me feel and what it's doing and how it's impacting the relationship, they're going to stop. That's not going to help either. That's another form of denial. And it's not going to do anything but perpetuate the situation. Denial does not work in relationship because it enables whatever the issue is. It enables whatever the challenge is to grow. And as it grows, that resentment grows. And as the resentment grows, the dissatisfaction for the relationship and or the person that you're in relationship with, it also grows until one of two things happen. Either the relationship is ending, or you find yourself staying in the relationship. You're not happy in the relationship isn't thriving, and you're not content. You're not fulfilled in the relationship. What are some reasons why we stay in denial? Sometimes it's because we have our own forms of brokenness, and so we find our identity in the relationship. So what we don't want to risk is we don't want to risk confronting whatever the issue is or whatever the challenge is. And by the word confronting, I'm not talking about confronting in a negative way, like yelling, screaming, and fighting. We don't want to deal with. We don't want to face. We don't want to say, this is what is going on. We don't want to do those things. So we choose not to confront. Why? Because our identity is formed in this relationship. And rather than risk losing the relationship or not having this person in our life, we choose to ignore. Or we'll choose to act like it's not that bad. Oh, I can deal with this. We'll try to convince ourselves, or we'll try to rationalize and say, well, it could be worse. But out of fear of not being in relationship, what we'll do is we'll go into denial mode. We'll deny the existence of whatever the issue or the challenge is, or we'll even deny how it's impacting us and how it's impacting the relationship. Another reason why denial really, really does not work is because when we don't face things, when we don't address things, when we don't learn how to work through issues, we'll continue in this cycle. And we'll find ourselves having to deny more and more things. We'll find reasons to make excuses for more and more things. And it won't work. What it does is it really stifles the relationship. And it works on one's self-esteem. Denial will work not only on a person's self-esteem, but it'll work on their sense of self-worth. It'll work on their belief system. It will cause them to go into a mode of thinking that looks like this. Well, this is what all relationships look like. And Or we'll say, I don't know how to make it better, but then we don't try. We don't try to reach out. We don't try to seek assistance. Denial will also lead us into an isolated state. We won't try to seek out assistance. We won't try to seek out help. We won't make the necessary attempts. And again, fear comes in. Fear of losing the relationship, fear of what others may say. So again, if I deny that it's going on, I can just, I can pretend. And pretending only gets you so far. Pretending will only get you so far. Another reason why it's challenging to live through, I don't know what's going on with my screen. Okay. Another reason why it's challenging to go through denial in relationship is because we're thinking, if I don't address it, well, then the other person is going to change. By continuing to walk in denial with challenges in relationship, the message that is sent to the person who's engaging in the behaviors that are harming the relationship, harming themselves, and or harming you in the relationship, the message that is sent to them is that this is okay. He or she isn't saying anything about it. So, it must be okay. Even though in our rational mind, we know that it's not okay. We will try to say, well, you know what? It can't be that bad because they're not saying anything. They're letting me continue. I find this to be the case in working with a lot of individuals and couples in my private practice. Again, I work with individuals and couples who are dealing with infidelity and sexual addiction issues within their marriage and or their relationship. And denial is a big, big factor in why, when they finally come into my office to seek some help and to work through the issues, when we begin to look at all of the signs and all of the things that were going on, the biggest reason we find that they didn't want to come really wasn't out of fear, although this can be a factor, a fear of what people are going to think, especially within the church. Fear does play a big part, but the biggest thing is denial. It's denial. And sometimes the denial even looks this way. This is my cross to bear. Let me just be real. This is relationship real talk. Okay. This is my cross to bear. No, it's not. No, it's not your cross to bear. No, it's not your cross to bear. If it's infidelity, if it's a sexually addictive behavior, and that can take many forms. It can take the form of pornography. It can take the form of excessive masturbation. It can take the form of multiple affairs. We call that relationship or love addiction. Yes, that is very real. Yes, it is very real. And it's not just based on sex. Often people have that belief that, if a person is said to be working through a sexual addiction, that it's all about the sex. No, that's the manifestation. It's not the root, it's the manifestation. It's the fruit of some deep, deep wounding, some deep emotional wounding, some deep soul wounding, even physical wounding. Okay? And we're going to address that on other scopes to come as well. But it's that denial. They come to meet with me, and we begin to talk about it. The reasons why, they would begin to rationalize or make excuses to excuse away. The reasons why they would begin to pray away or put the responsibility on God or on the other person, saying, well, if God really, if God, doesn't want them to deal with it, then he'll take it away. God has the ability to help us to work through it. Yes, if he wanted to, he could take it. But I'm reminded of Paul, and I want to reference it like this. God could have taken whatever Paul's thorn was. He chose not to take it, but Paul had to do some things to work through it so that he could get to his nevertheless. Now, in relationship, especially when we're dealing with infidelity or we're dealing with sexual addiction, I'm not saying that, oh, this is your cross to bear, or that, this is your thorn. I am going to say this. This is a stronghold that you must address. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining. How are you today? So glad that you could join. I'm going to reset real quick. And it is me. I'm Tanika G. I'm your Real Talk minister. I'm also a licensed psychotherapist. And on today's scope, we are talking about relationship real talk. And while so glad that you're good, sweetie. While denial, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. When we continue in this state of denial, what we're really saying is, I don't want to assume responsibility for whatever it is that has to change. I want it to change, but I don't want to assume the responsibility for it. And again, if we're not going to work through it, if we're not going to call it for what it is, if we're going to, the term beat around the bush, if we're going to call it everything except for what it is, we're operating in a form of denial. And denial, it doesn't get us what it is we actually want. It doesn't get us what we need. It doesn't get us resolution in relationship. What denial will do is bring us more pain. What denial will do is bring us more disappointment. What denial will do is lead us to a place where we're not only, I said this before, not only resenting the other person, but we begin to resent ourselves as well. So, how do you work through denial? The first part is actually, whatever it is, confessing what it is. If it's within my relationship, we're dealing with manipulative behaviors, or we're dealing with one partner in the relationship. I'll use this for example. They're lying. We have to call it what it is. We can't just say, oh, well, sometimes he stretches the truth. She stretches the truth. He has difficulty, just saying everything that's going on. No, they're lying. And we need to call it what it is. In order to confront something, we have to be honest about addressing it. Walking out of denial, pardon me for a minute. Walking out of denial is not as challenging as we think. Why? Because the first step is, like I just said, calling it what it is. It is what it is. After you've called it what it is, then you can begin to ask yourself additional questions, or you can begin to look at what you need to do to address the issue, to get it resolved. For example, again, with me working with couples that are dealing with infidelity and or sexual addiction within their relationship. When I'm working with the person who has the stronghold, the person who has either broken their covenant, or is dealing with the stronghold of sexual addiction, I will ask them, what is it that you're dealing with? Well, I don't know. Tell me what it is. I do this because I'm helping them actually walk out calling it what it is. Now, sometimes they won't say, that my stronghold is sexual addiction. Sometimes they won't say, well, I've been engaging in watching porn for X amount of time. They'll call it other things. Sometimes I watch movies. What kind of movies? Sometimes I look at magazines. What kind of magazines? Or I'll even get this. Well, it's soft porn. Well, what is soft porn to you? Are you saying that soft porn is okay? Because no form of pornography is okay. They're minimizing. And denial will cause us to minimize. So what I do is I get them to name whatever it is. I get them to name it for the spouses or for the significant other in the relationship. When spouses come in and infidelity is the issue, well, he was talking or she was talking to someone else, because I do see men and women. Okay, men are not the only ones who are dealing with issues of infidelity. Men are not the only ones who are dealing with sexual addiction. They're not. When when I talk to the spouse or the significant other, okay, well, he or she is talking to another female or talking to another male. What exactly does that mean? Well, they're talking, or they're having inappropriate conversations, or they've gone out on dates for a few times, or they've actually, had sexual intercourse. I get them to name it, not to get them to, re-experience their pain, but to get them to face whatever it is. The moment you can call it what it is, the moment you don't try to excuse it away, the moment you don't try to excuse the behavior, the moment you can say, this is exactly what it is. He or she was unfaithful. He or she had inappropriate conversations, or they were having inappropriate whatever with the other person. The moment you can do that, although it doesn't feel freeing, it actually is. And why? Because you're no longer trying to convince yourself that whatever it is you've come to know, whatever it is that you've come to suspect is actually reality. The moment you are able to do that, it is freeing. What about when they say it's them, not you, but they can't tell you why they cheated? Okay, I'm thinking a couple of different things by that. So do you mind clarifying that a little bit for me? Are they saying I cheated, because it's nothing you did or nothing you didn't do? Honey, that's excuse making. If that's what you meant by that, that's excuse making. They're still not trying. Okay. They're still not trying to take responsibility for what they did. Although they're saying it's not you, it's me. What they're really saying, and they might not be aware of this, but what they're really saying is, I'm not assuming responsibility for this, or I'm trying to take the easy way out. Okay? There are a lot of different reasons behind it. So I don't want you to feel as though, that's the absolute reason why they're saying that. But we're going to talk later, right? So this is something that you and I will address. Okay, we'll go into greater detail when we talk. Great. We'll go into greater detail when we talk. When we're looking at how it frees you, because if you're suspecting that something is going on, and again, this just doesn't have to be about addiction or infidelity. Even if it's lying, even if it's, a person who doesn't assume responsibility for things that they need to be doing in relationship. It can be a gamut of things. We can be in denial about a whole lot of things. But when we say this is actually what we're facing, this is actually what we're dealing with. One spouse put it this way. When she began to call it what it really was, she said, oh my God, so I'm really not crazy. I really wasn't imagining things. This is really happening. This is what we're really experiencing. Now, although it didn't feel good, it was for her good because she was emotionally free in a sense. She was free to say, free to acknowledge, free to face it. When there are issues, when there are challenges in relationship, we have two choices. We can address it or we don't address it. Either way, initially, isn't going to feel comfortable. Sometimes another reason why we deny is because we're trying to feel safe. We're trying to feel emotionally safe. We're trying to avoid or put off feeling something. I don't want to hurt. And so if I act or if I pretend or if I don't allow myself to say or to see that this is really what's going on, then I'm not going to feel the pain. Now, this isn't true because you're already feeling the disappointment. You're already feeling the angst. You're already continuously thinking about, okay, what is going on? What is he or she doing? What is he or she not doing? So you're not really relieving yourself from feeling emotions that you don't want to feel when you're operating in denial. This is why denial doesn't work. I'll use me for an example. In past relationships, I would deny a whole lot of stuff. The reason why I was denying, the fact that this person isn't really committed to this relationship and he's not committed to me as well is because I had this false belief that I had to be in a relationship. I had this false belief that this is where I found my sense of worth, or this is where I found my sense of identity. So again, I would engage in excuse making. I would engage in trying to talk myself out of what I actually knew what was going on, because I had a desire to maintain the relationship. The relationship was feeding a need that I had, and it wasn't a healthy need. Okay, relationships. We were created for relationships. The very first relationship was between God and Adam. God desires for us to be in relationship. The proof. He recognized that although he and Adam were in relationship, it wasn't good for Adam to be alone, and so he created Eve. We were created for relationships. God even gives them a command to be fruitful and multiply, creating additional relationship on many levels. So we are created for relationship. And in relationship, we are able to obtain three very, very essential things. In relationship, we are able to experience love. In relationships, we are able to experience significance. And in relationship, we find security. Okay? Love, significance, and security. Those are really the top 3 reasons why we enter relationship. And when any of these 3 things are challenged, or if we've learned them in unhealthy ways, it leads to a lot of false beliefs about relationship. So another reason why we'll deny things in relationship is because we need to have one or all 3 of these needs met. So if an area in our relationship is rocky and it's going to set one of these 3 things off kilter, I'll choose to be like, I don't see that. That's not what we're experiencing. That's not what we're going through. Why? Because we can't risk not having the relationship. Now, this doesn't make our relationship healthy either. Doesn't make it healthy at all. And subconsciously, we can know this, but we'll kind of weigh things. We'll rationalize again. We'll say, well, it's not so bad because, or it's better than not being in relationship at all. And again, we're going into excuse making. And why? It's because we have an unmet need, or we're trying not to have an unmet need, and we're trying to keep it or maintain it in unhealthy ways. And denial will do this to us. When we function in denial, this is what we do. We are breeding a lot of unhealthy things in our relationship. You all, it took me a long time to recognize this, because I practiced it for multiple years. And I would carry these things from one relationship to the next relationship. Just being honest with you. I'm just being honest with you. And it took me really doing a lot of things. In order for me to walk out of that denial, I had to get support. I sought counseling. Not only did I seek counseling, I found someone who I could be safe with outside of counseling. Okay? And at the beginning of this scope, I talked about safety and being in community. And what I mean by being in community is being surrounded by individuals, being surrounded by people who I can share my heart with, I can share my thoughts with, even my wrong thinking. I can share it with them, and out of a place of love and out of a place of support, they're going to say, well, you know what, Tanika, I can hear what you're saying. I can even understand why you're saying it, but I want to ask you, is that really the truth? So they wouldn't let me be or continue in a place of denial. They wouldn't let me pretend things away. Okay? And then here's the other thing that made them safe. They didn't talk about me. I didn't have to worry about if I call them on the phone or if I meet with them face to face and we talk about where I am. We talk about my thoughts. We talk about my feelings. I didn't have to be concerned about whether or not they were going to tell so-and-so. And you all, that's very, very important. Having safety is very, very important. Because in order to make changes, one of the things that enables us to make change is being safe, even when change is uncomfortable. Sometimes change is uncomfortable. Yes, yes. And you don't want to be judged or heard negatively. Yes. I'm going to actually, next week, actually, I have this plan. I know people say stuff to me and I'm laughing to myself because I'm like, Lord, they're getting in my list of things that I'm going to talk about in my scopes. But one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to be talking about safe people in safe environments. And that scope is coming next week. Okay. So I want you to stay tuned. Even for my replay viewers, I want you to be able to come back and join us because we're going to be talking about those things. We're also next week, I'm going to be sharing some different things that we're going to be doing in the weeks to come, not here just on Periscope. But again, I'm a licensed psychotherapist. And so in my private practice, I'm doing a lot of small groups. I'm doing a lot of workshops and seminars. And so we're going to be talking about that as well. And they're not large in number. And the reason why they're not large in number is, again, because I want it to be a safe place. I designed it to be a safe place for people to come where they're not going to feel judged and they're not going to feel as though, am I crazy for thinking or feeling this way? If you're thinking or you're feeling a particular way, that's how you feel. Okay, when we talk, sweetie, I'm going to be able to give you some more information, and I'll even be sharing information on my website and in my scopes. Okay, I'm going to get back because we're going to wrap up a little bit for today. I want to say this about denial. Okay, it's not as scary as the feeling that is associated with denial would have us think. What is a feeling associated with denial? Fear. Fearful of what people will say. Fearful of what people might say. Fearful of how I'm going to feel once I acknowledge the truth. Fearful of what I'm going to have to do or not do as a result of acknowledging the truth. These are all real thoughts. Okay? And hear me when I say it's okay to have them. This is what I mean. They're valid. They're valid. They're valid. And just because they're valid doesn't mean that you won't be able to do what's necessary. But denial will tell you that. Denial will tell you, continue to operate in me. Because this is safety. Denial gives you a false sense of safety. When we operate in denial, we're thinking that we're protecting ourselves from further hurt or from further disappointment or from further harm. And honestly, we're not. What's happening as a result of us walking or living in denial is that we're experiencing the further hurt. We're experiencing the further pain. And walking out of that place of denial with support is not as hard as one may think. How do I do it? I already said we ask questions. Another way, when I work with individuals and when I work with couples and we're dealing with denial, I ask them if it's not able to initially come out of your mouth, if you're not able to initially verbalize it, write it down. And here's the question. What is it that you wish you could pretend is or is not happening? What is it that you wish you could pretend is or isn't happening? Write that down. And then after they've written it down, I have them read it. Why? So that they can actually verbalize it. And I'll have them read it a few times, read it to themselves, and then they read it out loud to me. Then I'll ask them, how did it feel to read it? They'll tell me how it felt to read it. And then I'll say, how did it feel to read it to me? Then I'll ask them this final question. So, with denial telling you that you weren't going to be able to do that because you would experience this, or you would experience that, was that truth? I've always gotten the no. I've always gotten the no. Why? Because denial was telling them, you're not going to be able to handle the truth. You're not going to be able to deal with it. You're not going to be able to face it. And the very fact that they wrote it down and they verbalized it and they were still there, they didn't lose their mind, I say to them, so is it that you couldn't handle speaking the truth? Or is it that you're unsure of what you may have to do or not do as a result of being honest about whatever it is you weren't willing to face? That's how we walk out of denial. Then getting those supports and getting the help and learning the skills and learning the tools to address the situation or situations. That's how you continue to stay out of denial. Now, I want to say this to you before we go for today. I want to encourage you to do this. If there's something that you haven't been wanting to face, maybe there's something that you haven't wanted to admit to yourself. Okay. I want to encourage you, if you can't verbalize that, write it down. Write down whatever it is. And once you've written that down, I want to know why you felt as though you couldn't do it. Why is it that you felt as though you wouldn't be able to say this, or you wouldn't be able to recognize this? And then after you've answered those two questions, I want you to tell yourself this: I just faced it. I just verbalized it. I just called it whatever it is. And recognize that by you doing that, you are walking out of denial. You're walking out of denial. Thank you so much for joining me. You caught me right on the tail end, so you're going to have to catch the replay. Again, I am Tanika G. I am Tanika G. I'm your Real Talk Minister and licensed psychotherapist, coming to you to talk about relevant topics within relationships to provide you with encouragement, help, hope, and healing. May you be blessed on today, and join me on tomorrow. Tomorrow is For You Fridays, and we're going to talk about some things that help you focus specifically on you to strengthen and encourage you. Be blessed, and I'll see you tomorrow.